Hey friends, welcome back to another video. Now today I'm going to be giving you some book recommendations based off anime I really enjoy. I got this idea from two of my friends here in booktube, Olivia from Olivia Catastrophe and Meg from Meg with Books. They both do these really fun recommendation videos where they recommend books based off things. I know Olivia's done bookmarks and mugs. Meg's done a whole bunch of things. She's done book recommendations based off TV shows. She's done book recommendations based off her favorite Pokemon. And I just think it's such a fun way to incorporate books and your favorite other thing and talk about them. So I wanted to do that with anime. I will of course have both their channels linked down below, and I will also have those videos that I mentioned. They've both done quite a few of them. It seems to be like a series on their channels that they both do, and I really enjoy those videos, so I highly encourage you to check them out if you have not watched them already. First anime I want to recommend a book for is Kikis Delivery Service. Kiki is, I feel like, such a staple anime. It is an animated movie from Studio Ghibli. If you've never seen it, you have to. It's such a good place to start with anime. It's about this young witch who kind of has to go off on a journey and kind of make her own way in the world. It's very wholesome. Studio Ghibli movies, there's a whole bunch of them, but I'm just going to focus particularly on Kiki. But most of them tend to have very similar styles and narrative choices, and I think what particularly stands out for me is how contained the Studio Ghibli movies are. What I mean by that is they're usually focused on a particular town and setting and how one person or event impacts that town or changes that town. Kiki is such a comforting story, and I think it has this really nice balance between having everyday life and like messages for a good life, and then also having a little bit of a deeper tone to it, and while also being whimsical. So the book I recommend if you enjoy Kiki's Delivery Service is The Girl Who Drank the Moon. This probably is no surprise because since I finished that book, I have not stopped saying how The Girl Who Drank the Moon is basically a Studio Ghibli movie in book form, and it definitely most closely represents Kiki in the sense that both these stories do follow witches. I also think it has sprinkles of Princess Mononoke in the story as well. Those darker themes that are in Princess Mononoke I think do resemble the darker story elements of The Girl Who Drank the Moon. Now, The Girl Who Drank the Moon, I've talked about this so much on my channel, so I'm sorry if you heard about me talk about it, but I'm probably never going to shut up. We start off and we follow this witch in the woods who takes in this child who has been sacrificed from her village because her village believes that they have to sacrifice a baby once a year in order to keep peace between them and the witch. But the witch isn't evil like the villagers believe, and instead she's been taking these babies and been giving them away to adoptive families. With this particular baby that she picks up at the beginning of the book, she accidentally gives this baby moonlight, and that makes the baby magical. So she then raises this baby, and we follow this girl as she grows up. Her name's Luna. We also follow the villagers and what this dynamic between them and the witch and exchanging the babies each year and how that impacts them as individuals, as a group, and it's just such a magical, whimsical story. The writing is stunning. Like, if you are a fan of Erin Morganson's writing or like Laini Taylor's writing and sort of storytelling, you have to read this book because it's magical. It's just magic in writing form. I adore it, and I think everyone should read it. I think it's also the perfect time of year to read this book right now, with it being autumn overseas and Halloween coming up. It's definitely got the witchy vibes, but it's not spooky. It's very wholesome, and I just cannot recommend this book enough. Now, the next anime I'm going to recommend a book for is called Macwa, When the Promised Flower Blooms. It's got kind of a long title, and I don't know if it's like one long title or like two titles. Could be like translation thing, I'm not entirely sure. But this animated movie I feel is like really underrated, so if you are into animated movies, please watch this and please tell me what you think, because I think it's one of the most stunning, beautiful, tragic movies I have ever seen. Like, the animation art is just, you have to see it, and the music score, oh my god, just as stunning to match the animation style. This story follows a group of people who live up basically in the sky, and they are humans, but they don't live a normal mortal life. They live a very long life. They just have a very long extended youth. At the beginning of this story, we see them and they're living in harmony. They have a very peaceful lifestyle, and they are invaded by normal humans such as us who live mortal lifestyles. This invasion leads to a lot of them being killed, and then a lot of the other ones fleeing and living and hiding out on Earth. So we follow this girl Macwa, who finds herself on Earth, and she has to hide who she is. At the very beginning of the story, she comes across this baby, and this baby is in the arms of his dead mother, and she decides to take him in. And it's basically about her raising this child and their life together, and what it's like for her aging very, very, very slowly and him aging normally, how that impacts their relationship and their dynamic over the years. Now, the book I want to recommend for this is Strange the Dreamer. The first reason I chose Strange to recommend for this anime is because the lush writing really reminds me of the animation style and the music score that the anime has. Like, if Strange the Dreamer was an anime, it would be in this anime style. I think also the hatred between two groups of people and the prejudice and the torment that one group can inflict on another group, and how that can also be generational and inherited, and just the lasting effects both of these stories deal with that.
Strange the Dreamer follows orphan boy Laszlo Strange, who grew up in a library and fantasized about this lost city of Weep his entire life, and one day he gets the opportunity to travel to this city. Part of the story is him traveling to Weep, and the other part is him arriving at Weep and discovering the secrets and the mysteries and the people there.
I don't want to say too much because I feel like with Strange the Dreamer there's a lot of discovery in that book, and you don't learn a lot of things until a good chunk of the way through it. There's a strong focus on like character and setting, and also style, writing style, animation style. I highly recommend both of these. The next anime I want to talk about is like such an OG. This is one of the earliest animes I watched, and I've rewatched this one so many times over the years. It's such a comfort, even though it's like so ridiculous, and if I watched it for the first time now, I don't know what I would think of it, but that is Ouran High School Host Club. It's just such a fun, wholesome anime. We follow this girl who ends up becoming part of this host club. This host club is full of these boys who are all pretty boys who basically like entertain girls at this school. All these characters attend this private school, and they're all very, very rich and have way too much time on their hands. And so this is how the boys spend it. And our main girl in the story, she has short hair, and one day she's wearing the boys' uniform. So she is mistaken for a boy, and then due to fortunate and accidental circumstances, she also has to step into the host club and help them out to repay damages that she's done. It's just about the adventures they get up to and the relationship between all these characters. Now, this recommendation is a little bit of a stretch. It's very, very hard to do justice to the host club, I feel, but the book I want to recommend is American Royals. I read this at the very beginning of the year, and it was just a fun time. It's just a fun, whack time, and it just gave me host club vibes in that sense. There's also quite a few characters, like we do have a bit of a cast of characters, and we follow this girl who is the next queen of America. This story is set in a world like ours, but in this, America ended up becoming a monarchy. We follow the family, and the main girl is the next queen. Then we follow her two siblings. This was just so fun, just so chaos. I also think this is the perfect book to read for a readathon. Like, it's just drama. It reminded me of a mix of like Gossip Girl and like Crazy Rich Asians. Also, or in High School Host Club as well. Even though it's not set in high school, it's still got that age demographic and then a group, and just like fun and chaotic at the same time. The next anime I want to recommend a book for is Death Note. Death Note is another OG anime. I feel like it's such an introduction anime for so many people. I think it was my first like full anime series. I had definitely seen movies before I watched Death Note, and I know as a kid I did watch like Sailor Moon, and I also watched Pokemon, but this was like my first like animated series that I watched the whole thing in sub. If you haven't watched anime and you're interested in getting into anime, I highly recommend Death Note. A lot of people say this, and I think it just shows you the like creativeness of the anime genre, and also the like depth. Some of the animated stories have this really dark depth to them, and I think Death Note is definitely that one. And then it also has like really fascinating characters. Like, if you want a villain origin story, Death Note is like the villain origin story you need. It is incredible. Death Note, if you've never heard of it, we follow this high school student, Light, who is basically a prodigy. He's a genius, he's good looking, he's like the perfect boy in all aspects. One day he comes across this notebook, and the notebook is titled The Death Note, and he just takes it home, doesn't think anything of it. He opens it up at home and has these instructions that says that if you write anyone's name in this book, they will die. He laughs it off as a joke, but then he sees on the news that there is a hostage situation happening, and and they put the criminal who is holding the civilians hostage on the screen. He sees the picture of the criminal and he also sees this criminal's name. So he thinks, okay, well, let me just write this guy's name in the notebook. Nothing's going to happen. And it does. So he does have in his possession this notebook that gives him the power to kill others. He then goes on this journey that starts off as him trying to rid the world of people who he sees as evil. I don't want to say too much, but things definitely spiral out of control, especially because it's something that he has to keep secret and then people are trying to figure out what's going on. It is just one of the most mind-blowing, clever, creative stories I've ever come across. It's just so amazing, and you have to watch it if you haven't already, or read the manga if you're looking into getting into manga. I have got the manga, but I haven't started reading it. I need to do that. It's still been like, you know, over 10 years since I first watched the show, and my mind is still like blown away by that story. But the book I want to recommend for Death Note is Middle Game. I don't say this lightly. To recommend a book based off Death Note is like such high praise in itself. So to recommend Middle Game, I think should tell you a lot. Middle Game is a story that follows two twins, Roger and Dodger, and they are separated at birth, but they have this really special connection that allows them to communicate with one another, and they eventually find out that they are twins. They each have kind of like special abilities. One is more in tune with numbers, the other is more in tune with words. This book reminded me in so many ways of Death Note, even the way it was told. I think also the way it's these two twins, Roger and Dodger, and then we have Light in Death Note, and how they are all trying to ascend to this like greater power. I don't want to say anything more than that, just because I think that there are a lot of surprises in Middle Game and also in Death Note that I don't want to give away. That's a huge part of the fun of the story, is those shock factors and those twists that you just don't see coming, that are completely mind-blowing. And I just want you guys to trust me. If you love Death Note, you have to read Middle Game, and if you love Middle Game, you have to watch Death Note or read the manga of Death Note, because I cannot recommend them enough. The last anime I want to talk about is Sword Art Online. Sword Art Online follows these high schoolers who play this virtual reality game that is medieval fantasy inspired, and one day they all get trapped inside the game. The game gets rigged so that if they try to escape, they die. If they die in the game, they die in real life, and they are all trapped until someone completes all the levels and gets everyone out. However, that's not an easy task, especially since their lives are risked. Once they die in the game, they're dead for good. There's mostly two high schoolers that we follow, but we also see people that they become friends with within the game and how they live their life within this game while also trying to get out. Like, the stakes are so high in this. I just loved the whole setting of it. And the book I want to recommend for this is An Unkindness of Magicians. Now, this one is again a little bit of a stretch, but I really wanted to talk about this book because I haven't talked about it for a good while on my channel, and I really enjoyed it, and I think more people need to read this. This is a standalone urban fantasy that is set in New York City, and we follow these magicians who kind of live underground, and there is a secret society of them, and they are all having a competition. There's also a little bit of a murder mystery going on, and it's just a lot of fun. The whole competition dynamic and also the way the stakes are so high is how An Unkindness of Magicians reminded me of Sword Art Online, and also in the way that no one really survives or gets out until the competition or the game is over. I really highly recommend both. They are a lot of fun. I did with Sword Art Online only watch the first 2 seasons. I might have watched half of season 3, I can't remember, but I definitely think that they were trying to drag out the story a little bit too much. I wasn't as invested as in the later seasons, so I stopped watching, but I definitely love season 1 so much, and I also love An Unkindness of Magicians, and I really want more people to read it because it's a very short adult fantasy book, and it's got a beautiful cover, and it's written by a female author, and I really hope more people read it, because I think if you're trying to get some more adult fantasy books read before the end of the year and you're looking for a short one, this is the one for you. I highly recommend. So that is it. Those are all the recommendations I have for you today. Please let me know what you thought of these, and if you're into anime, let me know what anime you like. I might do another one of these in future, because I didn't even get to talk about Full Metal or Naruto, which were like my top 2 anime probably of all time, or not including How. I love How's Moving Castle as well. So I need to work out a way in future to talk more about anime and books. So thank you again for watching, and I really hope that you're enjoying whatever you're currently reading, and I really hope to see you next time. Bye!